Today we're going to be multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Again, what makes something a rational expression is just that it has a variable in the denominator. Okay, so we're going to be multiplying and dividing with monomials and binomials that have variables in the denominator. There's different ways that you can multiply, different steps. You can cancel out you can simplify the coefficients first, you can simplify the variables first, you can multiply it all together and then simplify in the end. So there's no right way or wrong way to do this. I am going to simplify the coefficients first and then the variables after, but again, that's just one way. So in this problem, I can simplify this 7 and this 49, I'm sorry. So 7 can go into 7 one time, and 7 can go into 49 7 times. And then I can do 7 and 14. So this 7 can go into 7 one time, and 7 can go into 14 two times. But then I can also do this 2 with this 12. So 2 can go into 2 one time, and 2 can go into 12 6 times. All right, so again, you could also simplify the variables at this point, but in this problem, I'm not going to, just to show you what it looks like. So in the numerator, you have 1 times 1, just 1. If you want to put it, you don't have to put it. And the variables, you have an x squared, a y, and a z going all the way across the numerator. Okay, in the denominator, you have 6 times 1, so just 6. And then you have 1x, you have 4 y's, and you have 3 z's. Now, let's simplify. So this is going back to chapter 8, where we just simplify monomials, or divided monomials. So it may be even chapter 7. Okay, so in the numerator, I'm going to just get rid of that 1 because it's understood. Okay, you don't have to, you can write it, it's up to you. So just looking at my x's, I have x squared in the numerator and x in the denominator. That means I have one more x on top than on bottom. My y's, I have y over y to the 4th, which means I have 3 more in the denominator. Z's, I have 1 z on top and 3 on bottom, which means that I have 2 more in the denominator. And that is my answer. In this problem, I'm going to have to factor before I can do anything. So let's factor what we can. In this top numerator, there's really nothing you can do, so I'm going to leave it b plus 3. In the denominator, I can factor out a 4, so I'd be left with 4 times b minus 3. In this numerator, it's a trinomial, so what times what gives me b squared, b, and b. What multiplies together to give me 3? Here, I'm going to do this over here. What multiplies together to give you 3? That adds together to give you a negative 4. Well, 3 and 1. And if they're going to give you a negative 4, then they both have to be negative. So I'm going to put negative 3 and negative 1. Then the denominator, what times what gives you b squared, b, and b. What multiplies together to give you negative 30? That adds together to give you negative 7, negative 10, and 3. So I'm going to put negative 10 and a positive, and a positive 3. So let's think about what I can simplify. Okay, this is my scratch space over there. That's why I blocked that off. Now let's simplify where we can. So I have a b plus 3 here and here. I have a b minus 3 there and there. So then you just write what you're left with. So in the numerator, I'm left with a b minus 1. In the denominator, I'm left with a 4 and a b minus 10. And that is my answer. I could write it like this, or I could distribute that 4. Either way, that's your answer. So you could write it either way, it's fine. Number 3, we know that when we're dividing fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the problem exactly how it is, except that I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of my second fraction. So I'm going to say 25x squared over 44. And now we're going to simplify. So let's see. We can simplify vertically or diagonally, never horizontally. Okay, so 20 and 25. Again, there's many different ways that you can simplify this in many different orders. This is just what I'm choosing. Okay, so 20 and 25 can both be divided by 5. So 20 divided by 5 is 4. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Now I'm going to simplify the 4 and the 8. So 4 can go into 4 one time. 4 can go into 8 two times. And then my next step that I can do is simplify the 2 and the 44. So 2 can go into 2 one time, and 2 can go into 44 22 times. So I'm going to write it right now, not simplifying any of my variables, just simplifying my coefficients. So in the numerator, I have 1 times 5, so 5x squared. In the denominator, I've got 1 times 22, so I'm going to have 22, and then I have x cubed left. Well, we know from dividing monomials that you subtract your exponents. So I'd have 5 over 22, and then I've got 2 x's in the numerator and 3 in the denominator, so if I simplify, I'd be left with 1 in the denominator. This is another division problem, so I'm going to rewrite the same thing in the first fraction. The difference is, okay, this divided by x plus 3, right now it's assumed to be over 1. So if I flip it to multiply by the reciprocal, I would be multiplying by that, 1 over x plus 3. Now I'm going to try to factor where I can. So in the first numerator right here, both of those have a 3 in common. The greatest common factor is a 3. So if I factor out a 3, I would be left with x plus 3 over x squared times 1 over x plus 3. We can cancel out the x plus 3 and then just write what's left, multiply horizontally. So 3 times 1 is 3 over x squared. We have another division problem, so I'm going to write the first fraction as it is. So y minus 6 over 2y plus 6 multiplied by, flip it, y plus 3 over y plus 2. I'm going to factor where I can, which is really just that denominator. So I've got y minus 6 over, I can factor out a 2, get y plus 3 times y plus 3 over y plus 2. Now the only thing that I can simplify is this y plus 3. So when I finish with that, I would be left with y minus 6 over 2 times y plus 2. And I'm fine with that. You don't need to distribute unless you just want to. Last problem, we are still dividing. So I'm going to go ahead and write this first fraction as it is. If you want to factor here, you can. I'm just doing every step. Multiplied by, flip it, y minus 6 over y squared minus 25. Again, when you have a division, you multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Okay, now let's factor. So we have x minus 5 in the numerator. We have a trinomial that needs to be factored. So what times what is x squared? X times x. What multiplies together to give me 18? That adds together to give me a negative 9, negative 6, and negative 3. Negative 6 times negative 3 would give me 18. Negative 6 plus negative 3 would give me negative 9. Times x minus 6 over, now this is a difference of squares. So what times what gives me x squared? X and x. What times what gives me 25? 5 and 5. One has to be plus, one has to be minus. Now let's simplify. So we have x minus 5 and we have x minus 6 that we can cross out. When I do, what's left on top? A lot of students would say nothing, but that's not true. There's always a 1 assumed to be in front of each of these things. So 1 over x minus 3 times x plus 5. And that is my final answer.